Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I'm Conrad. This is the 45, a look back at what happened in Week 6 in the Premier League. It's too early to look at the table, but it's not too early to look at who's in the bottom half of the table. It's really strange to see so many London clubs, not in the top 6. There's only one London club in the top 6, Spurs. And then City, Arsenal, United, all in the bottom half of the table, which is a strange thing.
You can't win league titles in October, November, but you can lose them. Not claiming anybody's lost a league title within the first 6 matches, or 5 for some teams, but it definitely is indicative of potential results that could happen if teams don't change the way they've been playing. Tactics need to change, some player personnel to change up. It's been a fascinating, really open Premier League so far, and long may it continue.
First match we'll talk about West Ham and Man City. The question, or what we posed at the beginning, is this kind of a throwback to where the last time Hammers were above City in the tables when pre-Sheikh Mansour ownership, and West Ham now are still above City with the draw. They're 8 points from 6 matches, 12th place, same level from 5, 13th for City.
Yeah, I think that it's tough to, you won't claim that they're going to be at the same level of, West Ham are a bigger club than Man City. They're better than Man City. Not pre-Mansour in that regard, especially with the game in hand for Man City. They'll expect themselves to be doing much better this season than they have been, and they've been underperforming for much of it. And this match was very indicative of it. Not creating a ton of chances against a West Ham side where you should do so. Only 1.06 XG to just a 0.34 for West Ham. So it's the classic Guardiola problem. You have more of the ball, 70% to 30%. You have more of the shots, and yet you can't put it in the back of the net.
Sterling couldn't finish, right? He had the one-on-one late to get the winner. Couldn't beat him. City have dropped 7 points from 5 matches. That's a lot.
It is. We don't want to panic just 5 matches into the season. But it is worrying for Guardiola that they have been so off the pace so far this season, because this Liverpool haven't been perfect either. They've lost badly and they've drawn to Everton. So they're only 2 points off should they get the win in their match in hand. But the performances have not been there. There's a lot of questions on should Guardiola sign an extension? What's the long term for Man City? There's just a lot of question marks surrounding them right now. And I think credit goes to West Ham as well. They were clinical with their chances. Antonio continuing his hot form. And Fabianski, one of the most underrated goalies in the entire division, did another great game and kept them in that match.
So next up for Hammers, traveling to Liverpool, City home. Traveling to Sheffield United, looking to get some points there. They need that 3 to get them, hopefully, for them into the top half of the table. Next up, United and Chelsea. The question we asked, hey, this is going to be that defensive masterclass you expect from these two teams who, leading into this match, had looked atrocious defensively. Mm-hmm. And then, for whatever happened, United turned it around against PSG, and another fantastic defensive performance here. Chelsea now 2 0-0 draws in the span of 2 matches, one in Europe, one here domestically.
Yeah, and you mentioned it last episode. That hadn't happened under Frank Lampard until the match against Sevilla. Now it's back-to-back. So it's just the way football works. I think this match was not, it was just both teams stylistically decided not to go at it as hard as they probably would have earlier this season. I think both managers are probably under quite a lot of pressure because of not the greatest performances so far this season. Manchester United underperforming and Chelsea underperforming considering how much money they've spent. So I think both of them were a bit more cautious, saying we don't want to lose this match. And I think for Chelsea, draw away at Old Trafford is acceptable. For Manchester United, it's okay. I think you would have wanted to win at home. But I think both sides will be happy with a clean sheet. It was even in a lot of regards, Manchester United might have edged it a little bit. So I think the one worrying sign for Chelsea is that you spent all this money on some great attacking options, Ziyech, Havertz, Werner, Pulisic last year. So much wealth in the attacking area, and yet you're resigned to parking the bus, sort of, against Manchester United away from home. You would hope that you're a bit better off next time you play them this season. So I think an acceptable draw for now, but Chelsea will want to step it up very soon.
I'm curious if you're Lampard and you've got Mendy now as opposed to Kepa, maybe you don't feel like you've got to constantly be on the front foot in order to keep yourself in a match and just be okay. And, yes, you're away, but I just think he's probably a lot more comfortable with Mendy, at least because he looked great.
I would be. I mean, Mendy having 2 clean sheets, 2 man of the match performances very early on in his Chelsea career in the Premier League. So he's doing a great job in terms of just being better than Kepa at making saves. And we talk about with Liverpool after losing Van Dijk and having Alisson out for a while, they're going to have to defend by attacking their opponents very hard. Chelsea, with a more dependable number 1 between the sticks, probably don't have to rely on that as much. And it's a balancing act. You want to have attacking freedom, leeway to let your options get down the field and score goals, but you also want to be compact defensively and not just throw caution to the wind.
So right now, United sit 15th on 7 points from their first 5 matches. They've got that match in hand. Meanwhile, Chelsea in 10th, yet another of these London clubs not on the top half. I guess that is technically the top half. 9 points from 6 matches. Next up, United travel to Arsenal, Chelsea home to Burnley, where they will hope to feast. We'll talk about Burnley here in a minute. Next up, Southampton and Everton. We asked if this was going to be a bump in Everton's road. They were facing some injury crises. James ends up playing, obviously no Richarlison. They end up with another red card here, and they lose, not looking good. They look like this is the old Everton, the way they played. They did not play like the way Ancelotti wants them to play at all.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. That was exactly the angle I was going to take. This was not the Everton we've seen for the first 4 or 5 matches of this season, and towards the tail end of last season. They were defeated in the midfield. Pickford was poor. And that's not really a surprise. It's not changed too much. He hasn't been great this year. And they weren't really creating that many chances either. Southampton, in terms of XG, 0.75 to 0.34, Southampton edged that. So by the analytics, they weren't that much better creating chances, but they had Danny Ings and Shea Adams who were just clinical, including James Ward-Prowse, who got a goal as well. They had 3 in total, Southampton did. One of them chalked off. So they will be very happy with this result, Southampton will be, because they dominated the current league leaders. And Everton, they'll be upset with the Digne red card, but even if they were with 11 men, I don't see them getting back into that match. They were just defeated in the midfield, and they couldn't really supply Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which he's been in great form. But I think the biggest concern for him is that he can't really generate chances himself. You don't see Dominic Calvert-Lewin picking the ball up at the halfway line and making something happen. He's reliant on service to him, and when that doesn't happen, because James is a bit out of fitness, no Richarlison, now you have no Digne for potentially 3 matches. More bumps in the road for Everton, and will they revert to the old Everton that we know and love, or will they become the new one that Ancelotti wants to implement them with? It remains to be seen. This is the biggest challenge they faced so far. Reacted poorly this time, but you can't lose the title just yet.
Yeah, hard to say which Everton club is real, right? The one that started out 13 points top of the league, or the one that just had such a poor showing. And the truth is, it's probably are they a top 6 side? Yeah, I think they've got a shot at challenging for it right now. But we'll talk about some of these other clubs' chances as we go forward in this today. But I don't know. Like I don't think either of those 2 clubs are the real Everton just yet. And to your point, I think Ancelotti still needs a little bit of time to get what he wants. Next up, Arsenal home to Leicester. The question here was, hey, it's a top 6 battle, right? Okay, Arsenal lose. Now they're in 11th, and Leicester consolidate in 4th. A lot of possession for Arsenal. Not much difference between the 2 sides in terms of what we would expect to see goal-wise. There's just a phenomenal lack of creativity from Arteta and from the Gunners, and with Ozil just collecting a giant check every week, not in any squad. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Ozil is getting paid $350,000 a week to kind of just tweet match predictions, and
he's paying for Gunnersaurus' salary still, isn't he?
And Gunnersaurus' salary. I suppose he does bring some service to the club. For Arsenal, when Arteta was hired, he wanted to talk about how he wants to play football the right way. He wants to take the onus to the opposition. I haven't played that way yet. And it's acceptable because the talent isn't there. He needs to develop the squad. But there are some question marks about Arteta, and the thought enters the minds, was it a purple patch when they were so good under him and there were so many great tactical results against Liverpool, against Manchester City, winning an FA Cup and a Community Shield? was it just a good run of form in the honeymoon period? That honeymoon period is probably pretty over now. There's a lot of question marks, especially over Ozil. We definitely disagree with Arteta on him. I think it'd be acceptable if he found ways to just utilize his other creative talents. But when Aubameyang isn't firing, Lacazette had a goal
There's no
disallowed,
feeding. They're not
isn't really finishing his chances. And so when you're wasteful of your chances and you're not creating as many as you probably would want to, the question marks will be raised about Ozil and the like. In terms of Leicester, they do deserve some credit. I think Brendan Rodgers made some good halftime adjustments to try and free up Tielemans in the midfield away from Partey, who was dominating that first half. And towards the second half, they looked like the better side. And Cengiz Ünder, I believe that was his debut or one of his first performances for Leicester. A great assist to Vardy, who just continues to score against big sides. And he continues to defeat Father Time. So Leicester deserve a lot of credit. I think they are definitely, I don't want to say in the title race, because I think they have some flaws. It's a bit of an average performance. But there's a lot of positives, and getting the 3 points away from home is a huge deal anyways.
Yeah, I don't back to your point on Ozil, this is now the third manager at least to give up on him at Arsenal. Clearly there's something wrong there between him and the manager and just him and management in general. Don't know what it is, but that kind of talent, I think you got to find a way to use it. And to your point, yeah, Leicester didn't look great, got the 3 points, right? You got to be able to grind out wins if you want to have a shot at those European spots.
Exactly.
And then last up for us, the last match that took place today, Spurs at Burnley. Bit of a snoozer here. The questions we had is can Kane and Son continue to fire? And yes, they were just enough to get it done for Spurs today, 1-0. Spurs are really interesting. I think we'll finish the segment on that. But look, Burnley are in trouble. They just don't have the aggression. They don't have the personnel I think that I should really want. We've talked about that. Even with Spurs being kind of, they just looked a step off throughout the match. That could be the Thursday stuff. Oh, they didn't have a Thursday match. They didn't have any Europe this week. So
yeah, I can't quite identify this match. It was just definitely a bit lethargic, a bit slow from both sides. Burnley, I think the positive for them was they were very physical. I think in the open play, they were very, very good against Spurs. And I don't want to say they went toe-to-toe because Burnley are not known for going toe-to-toe with opposition. But they showed more defensive nows. And I think they didn't create too many chances, but they were positive going forward in terms of making some problems exist for Spurs. So there were some positives, no points, and you're still on 1 point total in the season. But I think there is still some reason for optimism for Dyche that it's not quite over just yet. For Spurs, I don't want to call them lucky, but if you rely on a bit of set-piece ingenuity from Kane and Son to break the game open in the 75th minute against Burnley, who have been struggling this season, 1 or 2 questions will be asked. I think, again, grind out that result, get the 3 points. Where they were beaten on the XG numbers, 0.98 for Burnley to 0.8 for Spurs. So it's really tough to say where these two sides will bounce on from here. But we mentioned it in the Leicester segment. If you want to compete for those European places, just get the ugly points. This is an ugly match. It was a Jose Mourinho side and Burnley. It was never going to be a pretty game, and it lived up to that standard. For Spurs, though, they'll be happy with the points.
Well, let's talk about Spurs and their top 4 aspirations, right? Neither one of us had them, but I think you had them at third, right? I had them at sixth.
I had them third, I believe.
But they appear to be hungrier than Manchester City. I think they're better organized operationally, philosophically than United are. They're better defensively than Chelsea are. I think they're far more creative than Arsenal. And they're really the only one, like Leicester and them, I still think just on talent alone, Spurs are ahead of them. Then that leaves you with Liverpool, who just have that amazing esprit de corps from Jurgen Klopp, and just the spirit in that side, and just their desire, right, is what really comes through for a Liverpool club. So is it down to Liverpool and Spurs really by the end of the season?
I think that Liverpool have proved me wrong a little bit. When Van Dijk went down, I definitely had a lot of concerns. I was thinking top 4 would be good for them. They've bounced back. Good performance from Gomez and Fabinho. So their long-term title stability is going to be interesting. But for Spurs, I think you hit the nail on the head. Are they a collective unit better than all those sides? But in the aspects you mentioned, they're good in those aspects, or they're at least better than the other teams in those areas. So considering Jose Mourinho is probably up there with Sir Alex Ferguson as the top 2 managers to ever grace the game, They have a guy who has won trophies, and that's going to only help you with a side that has not won trophies in the past. They're known for being ballers. They're known for not being able to finish the job off. Does this squad have it different? Is it going to be better? I'm not 100% sure, but they've had depth comparable to what they haven't had in previous years. Vinicius, its backup striker option. Davey started at left back today instead of Sergio Reguilon, and he did a good job. In the midfield, Ndombele has gotten over his issues with Mourinho, and he's having another great performance. Lo Celso was on the bench. He's another great creative option.
Dele Alli is still Spurs, kind of making his way back into the side. It's ridiculous.
Try and get Dele Alli back into the action, and then you obviously have Kane and Son who are absolutely firing. And if you can even get a tiny bit out of Gareth Bale of his enormous talent,
I forget about him. This
is a Spurs side that has. You talk about Man City, Liverpool. Probably those two, when you say, oh my God, you can go for hours on end about how much talent that they have and how many options that they have. So Spurs, they'll have reason for optimism. They got an ugly result today, but they got the points. And you look at their, I believe in 5th place, 11 points from 6. That's not terrible. It's better than many other sides. So there's reason for optimism. And I think the big thing is going to be maintain the fitness of Kane and Son. When they eventually come down from their hot form, who steps up? Where do they change things to make sure that Mourinho doesn't just have a good hot face at the start of the season and they actually have some delivering at the end?
Well, that'll do it for us for our look back at week 6. All there was, some strange results, and we'll look at the table, I think, here in the coming weeks and see what – I mean, there's really 3 to 5 points separating 15th from 5th. But that'll do it for us for week 6. That is Jack. I'm Connor. This has been the 45. Please do like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. Please look for us on the Twitter at the 45. Take care now.